Do you often find yourself emotionally frustrated, unheard, avoided, or even gaslit? In this video, I wanted to get into some reasons why I think this happens in individuals, why they're not able to talk about their emotions or even hear your feelings or side of things. Because I think this has become a big issue in today's society, in relations in general, whether they are intimate or a friend or a work relationship. I just want to get into a few things as to why I think this is happening, and also moving forward, how we can start to create more space for one another, understand our emotions better, and be able to live a little bit more harmoniously and get along better in general so that we can understand each other and live better. In this video, I hope that you'll be able to understand emotions better, your emotions, and maybe even what your friend, partner, or coworker might be going through themselves. And I'm not saying that we need to put up with any sort of projected abuse or someone being rude to us. What I am saying is that when we begin to understand one another and understand things in general in life, we are able to have a little bit more compassion and patience with people and situations. So first off, I want to get into the fact about how emotions are a part of the human experience, okay? We have them in order to navigate our environment, bond with one another, survive, right? Coming from an evolutionary perspective, when you feel fear, that tells you that there's something around you that you need to run away from in order to survive. When you're feeling love and belonging and connection, this means that whoever it is that you're feeling with, you can have a social bond with and maybe start a family with or have a friend. And that's what we want ultimately, is to survive, to procreate, to enjoy our lives. And so when you look at emotions, they are very important to our overall survival and fulfillment in this thing we called life. I'll tell you an interesting fact that I learned in my emotions class. So they did an experiment where they watched the behaviors of a mother and newborn, mother and child, okay? The behaviors of interaction and emotion between the mother and child. And you can imagine that they were that of, baby talk and love and affection and cuddling, and right? Like, you can picture that. So, and then they also looked at people that are in like relationships, intimate relationships. And what they noticed is that our intimate relationships and the behavior that we show towards one another are that of a mother and child, okay? And those behaviors of the mother and child are that of like love and bonding and affectionate. So I found it interesting that this was similar, and then it made me think of how it is so important that we express our love to one another, just like a mother is supposed to express love to a baby. Because what happens when a mother is not able to express and reflect love back to the child, maybe she had her own trauma, but a serious, exaggerated version of this, like where a mother totally disregards her baby and doesn't mirror back love and maybe gets annoyed of it, yells at it, or just downright ignores it, that baby ends up having developmental problems and even physiological or physical ailments. There is this, it's called like a disease where it's called deprivation dwarfism. And this happens to babies that don't get that love and affection and have severe like avoidance or neglect. And what happens is their bones don't grow properly. And so when they grow up, when they're supposed to be growing, like physically, sometimes things can happen where like their arm doesn't grow fully and it's like it only it doesn't grow, it stops growing. So you have like an adult person with like half an arm. Okay, so this just goes to show the importance of showing mirroring our emotions and feelings towards one another in order to pretty much regulate our nervous system and to survive and to thrive ultimately. And so going back to the intimate relationships, you and your partner, right? Expressing that love and affection and that baby talk, right? Like I said, mirrors the mother and baby relationship and mirrors also the importance of our bonding with one another. And this emotional bonding doesn't just include the moments when we're expressing these positive, loving emotions to one another, because yes, those emotions help us to connect and feel more connected with people and in love and safe. But there are other emotions as well within our experience that we, by nature, feel. Okay? And these are emotions like fear, sadness, embarrassment, shame, all these what maybe some people feel are feel not very comfortable expressing to other people. And in some cases, some of us suppress these negative emotions. And I think that the reason why we have these challenges with expressing more of our uncomfortable feelings is because we haven't normalized this in society. Depending on where you are from around the world, I can only speak from my own experience, where I'm from, and I also had my own individual experience within my family and my environment. So I'm not saying for everybody, okay? But if you've ever noticed, you're at work and, everyone's like, oh, hey, how was your day? Oh, great, yeah. And and there's nothing wrong with expressing positivity and lifting each other up. But if you ever notice there's this uncomfortability around expressing anger or negativity, or somebody snaps at someone, or something uncomfortable happens at work, right? Everyone's just talking about it after, or, saying, oh, that person shouldn't have said that. They should have kept it to themselves. Oh, they created this drama now. It's almost like there's this underlying belief that expressing any sort of negative emotions or emotions that aren't feel as good, and that there's something wrong with that. And just that belief in general, I think, is what has stigmatized negative emotions in general. And what I want you to know is that both the positive emotions and our negative emotions are all a part of this human experience. And if you live in an environment where the culture and the belief is that you don't talk about the negative emotions or your discomfort, just to save face and keep the harmony, which to a certain extent I get, right? And there's always a time and place to express certain negative emotions. But I think as a society, as what I have seen based on my own experience, is that we have fully suppressed this. Just look at men, not just men, I'm sure there's women, definitely, but like this whole generational, I don't know how many generations it's gone on for, but with like men, how men aren't supposed to cry or men don't have feelings. Like these deeply ingrained beliefs, what do you think have done to the male evolution? Almost de-evolved them, okay? And both men and women are of the same species. Yes, we have different characteristics, but we come from the same life. And even when we look at chimpanzees, like certain mammals like chimpanzees or dolphins or dogs, all of these animals express emotions, right? So if we can see that certain animals have emotions, right? Because they have developed a certain part of their brain, which I believe is the subcortical part of your brain, the hypothalamus and the amygdala, stuff like that, those parts of your brain that experience emotion and process your emotion. If animals have it, then like we have it as well. And a male brain has these parts of emotion where we experience emotion. So bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that both men and women experience emotion. But imagine years of not, like say being a man or even a woman, somebody that wasn't taught their actual nature of emotions. When they came up, what did it mean? What do I feel? What do I do with this emotion? Like, we're literally humans. And some of us were not taught how to be humans, right? What are these emotions? Why am I feeling these things inside of me, right? And so going back to the example of men, like that certain generation of men never experiencing emotion because it was suppressed. Well, what happens when you suppress an innate nature of either an animal or a human, when you suppress something that is naturally a part of you? What would happen, right? I'm thinking like some sort of rage, okay? And that's what happens going back to, the reason for this video is relationships. In relationships, okay? You're with somebody, and this person comes from a background where they never learned about these emotions within themselves. So now you're with somebody that has, they weren't taught, so now their emotions are suppressed, their innate nature has been suppressed, and now they're acting out in ways that are just stressing you. And you're just like, what the hell do I do in this relationship? You guys are fighting and not connecting. And this is where our problem lies in society, in our relationships, intimate or not, is that I think we don't understand ourselves as humans. And so how are we supposed to live harmoniously together when we don't actually understand ourselves and our own emotional experiences, especially the negative emotions, okay? When you look at society in general, we praise positivity. Any sort of negative experience or negative emotions somebody expresses, let's say in, I don't know, Hollywood or out in public, right? People end up shaming others for maybe having a moment, right? And we don't know exactly what that person is going through in that moment. And now we have just shamed them. Now, what I did learn from an evolutionary perspective, thousands of years ago, this way of shaming people in a community was a way to get people to act accordingly and to follow suit, to live more harmoniously within a community, to get people to just take responsibility for maybe their shitty behavior, right? And I think to a certain point, this is okay, because when somebody's being an asshole and they won't stop and you're trying to help them and, trying to teach them, but they still keep on lashing out, okay, fine, shame this person to try to get them to change so that we can all live harmoniously. But I think as a society now, we've gotten to the point where we are shaming everything. And it's almost embarrassing to the point where people don't want to make mistakes or have a negative emotional emotion like out in public, like famous people or whatever, because they'll just get super like attacked and shamed and put down. And so these are just a few examples of how our negative emotions as humans have been glorified as something shameful within us that we shouldn't be showing the world, right? And so you can imagine, and even other things that go on in families and cultures and the way we grow up, right? Like you grew up in a family where, men don't cry, or, oh, you don't like this? Don't say it. That only say what it is that you like or what was positive about the situation. We don't want to cause any problems, right? To a certain extent, I think that expressing gratitude towards others and situations is important. But when there's a real issue at hand and there is a serious negative emotional experience happening within a situation or a person, I believe this should be addressed. Because we've seen what happens when children's needs and feelings aren't met or reflected back. And what happens is that people end up lashing out or getting depressed or killing themselves, right? These are all exaggerated outcomes of our emotions being suppressed or from not being taught about our emotions. And most times it's not even our parents' fault. This, I believe, to be a generational occurrence, and something that I think that we as a collective are slowly starting to awaken to this fact and to this understanding of the human experience and of our soul journey in this life. And so before I go on for a million years, which I could, back to relationships, okay? I was just talking to somebody recently, and they told me how their last relationship, they spent with this person for years, on and off, and how the one thing that bothered them was the fact that anytime that she had a problem or had something that she wanted to talk about, he didn't want to talk about anything, right? And I've experienced this as well. And a lot of people in general that I've spoken to have experienced this, where their partner is not willing to listen to the other people's feelings. And why I think this happens, number one, is the other person doesn't understand their own emotions. Again, right? Not understanding their human experience of emotions, which is essential to navigating life. Going back to this evolutionary perspective of like, we need emotions to navigate life. And so they're not understanding their emotions, okay? So this means that they're disconnected from their human and from their emotions, so that they don't even understand. And so what happens as a defense mechanism, because I think it's true that humans, when we don't understand things, we either get angry or we make fun, and that's our defense. And so when somebody in the relationship is expressing upset towards the other person, you know, when you did this hurt me. And now the other person is feeling defensive. I hurt you. Like they're feeling like, oh, I did something wrong. I'm wrong. I'm bad. Again, going back to this societal mindset of like wrong, bad, right? You did something wrong. This is shameful, right? So like, let's avoid all of those things on top of not understanding my own emotions. So then this creates this like emotional immaturity, right? And now, can you know, so the person I was talking to, she said, you know, eventually that relationship didn't work out. And then she went to a newer relationship, and which was a lot better apparently. And I think the new partner that she was with, maybe she got triggered, maybe he was showing her a little bit of distance, and just like in her older relationship where that person wouldn't be able to hold space for her if she was upset. And she said that she went up to the guy and she said, listen, I did this in my relationship the last time for this many years, and I'm not doing it again. If you don't want to talk about things, if you don't want to acknowledge your feelings or acknowledge mine or talk about things, I'm done right now. And that's it, right? And so good on her, because she's acknowledging what it is that she needs, right? From in her emotional experience is to be acknowledged, okay? And my point of telling this is, from her perspective, is that this is what we need as humans, right? Just like with the mother and the baby. The baby needs the mother to reflect back what the baby is feeling. If the baby cries and is hungry, the baby needs to give, or the mom needs to give the baby what it needs: food, love, affection. Okay? Yes, there's, you know, a certain amount of responsibility as an individual that I need to take for my emotions. But at the same time, we also are here together, right? And we also need to reflect love and respect back to one another in order to feel connection, harmony, and love, okay? Who wants to live in disarray and disconnect and loneliness and isolation? Okay? So if you're watching this and you are the other person, that it's really hard, you were the guy or the whatever in my example, where they didn't want to talk about their emotions or feelings, or they couldn't hold space for the other person. If you are that person, don't be ashamed. Don't feel sad or embarrassed. None of us were really taught, not none, but a lot of us were not taught this. And maybe this is just a part of our evolution as humans, is to acknowledge this. And life is all about growth. So take your shame, throw it out. Well, acknowledge it and then throw it out, okay? Acknowledge that it's uncomfortable for you to maybe acknowledge your own feelings. And that's okay. And that is the start, is the awareness of your uncomfortability. And just by simply becoming aware of something within your being or something in your life, this is when things start to evolve and grow, and we see more and we learn, okay? The universe is in nature, everything is always in constant motion all the time, never stops. And that also means that you too are never stagnant and you are always in growth. Even if you are restricting yourself from feeling your emotions and not wanting to grow in that part because you feel uncomfortable, something's still growing beneath you, right? This resistance, or this need to want to express yourself, okay? So to the person that maybe doesn't understand their own emotions or feels blame when someone tells them that they hurt the other person, okay? If you feel embarrassed or ashamed that you hurt somebody, I want you to know this thing and I want everyone to know this thing, is that our emotions are our own subjective individual experience. And so even if it wasn't your intention to hurt your friend or your partner, that person felt that upset in their emotional experience. They felt it. Just like that when the baby cries, okay? And when the mother doesn't attend to the crying baby and turns her head, I saw this. It's called still face experiment if you want to look it up. When the mom doesn't attend to the baby crying, the baby starts freaking out, okay? And this is the same with all of our relationships. It doesn't mean that the mom intended to make the baby cry, but the baby's experiencing this feeling and needs to have its emotion and feeling reflected back to him in order for his nervous system to regulate and feel safe again. So reflecting back this love and attention and acknowledgement to the other person, like I said, calms them down and also creates a deeper connection. Whether it's your best friend, whether it's your intimate partner, whether it's your work partner, or even a random stranger on the street, okay? How do you feel? You've had the shittiest day or the shittiest experience, and you are feeling it, okay? And you end up going to express it to, let's say, 2 people, okay? The first person that you go to, you express everything and you're feeling the emotions, and the person is just kind of like, not really like mirroring back your reflection, right? Where your reflection is like just upset, right? And then they're just like, okay? Like literally in that still face experiment with the baby and the mom did that. She just stared at her baby like this when the baby was crying, upset. And the baby was just like starting to freak out more because mom just had like a still face. Nothing, okay? Have you ever had that experience and you tell somebody something so intense and they're just like, how do you feel when that happens, okay? You feel almost like ashamed or embarrassed that you even told the person, okay? So versus going and telling somebody the same thing, and this person is just reflecting back your feelings. Oh my God, I can't believe that must have been so hard for you. Oh my God, they come in and they hug you, or they're just like, oh man, that's so shitty. I'm so sorry for you for that. How do you feel after that experience, right? Every single human on this planet will tell me, okay, that they feel comforted and they feel better and they feel heard. And a lot of the time, our problems only continue to be problems in our life because we never had somebody just reflect back our feelings. And that's sometimes that's all it takes for somebody to feel better, is for you to just mirror back love, right? And to create space for them. And so that is what I wanted to talk about relationships and our emotional experiences, and how each person will experience their own emotional subjective experience, even if you don't understand their emotional experience. It doesn't matter. They're still experiencing it, okay? Emotions aren't like facts or like truth or untruth. Like emotions are a subjective experience, like a real experience for an individual, right? So it's not a matter of being right or wrong. They are technically right in the way that they're feeling. So, and they're entitled to feel the way they feel. And you're not supposed to feel what they're feeling. Like, even if you're just like, oh, I wouldn't be upset if somebody took one of my French fries, right? It doesn't matter. That person was upset. To just be like, oh man, that sucks. Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. Maybe you can give them some words of wisdom afterwards, like, oh man, doesn't really matter that somebody took your fry, right? But when the time is right, like, let them experience what they're experiencing in the moment and give them love. Give them the words of wisdom after the emotional wave has passed. Nobody ever wants advice when they're super pissed off. They just want to be heard. So again, I want to make it clear to stop taking things personally. Stop taking people's feelings personally. I mean, you might have hurt somebody, right? Maybe you were in a shitty mood that day and you were being triggered, right? Because your emotions were all over the place and you snapped at somebody or you said something from a, not a good place, right? These things happen. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you acknowledge that you did that, okay? And when you just acknowledge your behavior and you say, listen, I was having a shitty day, I'm sorry, I love you, I didn't mean to, right? It's not a matter of being right or wrong and, oh, you're right, I'm wrong, it's always like that. No, take that, scrunch it up and throw it in the fucking garbage. Not a matter of who's right or wrong. It's a matter of just acknowledging your actions and how they might have affected somebody else, okay? Even if you were in the moment, automatic and not acknowledging it. Just be like, I'm sorry. And as soon as you create that connection and that understanding, that other person now has a light shining on them. They feel heard, they feel understood, their nervous system is regulated, and they feel a deeper connection with you. I wanna tell you something. I realized that over the years, there were so many times I got pissed off at my partner, okay? Pissed off, downright, for days, right? And he had the same challenge where, it was hard for him to talk about things, whatever. We've come a long way. Either way, I'd be pissed off for days. But as soon as he came to just acknowledge that I was upset, to acknowledge maybe he upset me, but it wasn't his intention. Just his acknowledgement of it, I literally would feel an immense release of something, okay? Meanwhile, days before, I'm planning my getaway. I'm like, fuck this guy, packing my bags, right? Like sometimes I would get to that point because when our emotions and our feelings are not acknowledged, right? And I have my own, past traumas of like abandonment and rejection and all that stuff too, right? So like when my feelings aren't being reflected back, it triggers me. But like for a good reason. So, but as soon as he would come and just talk to me about it, literally all my anger, all my fear, all that stuff would just literally wash away and I would be back in love with him again. So imagine if we could just, as a society, right, in our friend groups, at work, in our partnerships, in our, with our neighbors, if we could just be honest and hold space for one another and show that we care and start to normalize, these more uncomfortable emotions and to hold space for them, how much more happier we would all be, okay? Anyways, that was a huge mouthful. I'm super passionate about this stuff. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you on my next video. Have a wonderful day, and remember, guys, to stay mindful.